Welcome back. In today's HackerRank C challenge, I looked at functions in C. This is one of the most important concepts in programming because functions allow us to break problems into smaller, reusable pieces. The task is simple. We need to write max of 4, right, which is a function. We need to write this function, max of 4. That takes in 4 integers, as you can see here. Returns the greatest of them. Sounds straightforward, but this challenge really helps you get comfortable with writing and calling functions in C. Now let's explain what functions are. A function in C is just a group of statements, okay, with a name. That's all. A group of statements. When I say statements, I mean code with a specific name. So in this case, a group of statements with the name max of 4 gives us a function. It can take inputs, which we call arguments, okay, and either return a value or return nothing if it's a void function. So in this case, we want to return the maximum of these 4 numbers from the function. So this function will return something, okay. Now the general syntax for a function looks something like this. You have the return type of the function, you have the name of the function, you have the parameters or arguments, and then you have your code and a return value if it's not a void function. Okay, so I'm going to keep this here for reference. Alright, so in our case, the return type will be an integer. Since we want to return an int, we are passing only integers. So we'll return an integer and we are comparing them, okay? Now, the name of the function will be max of 4 and it's going to take 4 integers as its parameters. Now you'll notice that there's a red squiggly line here. That's because we've not yet defined the max of 4 function. Immediately we define it, this squiggly line is going to go away. Alright, so to solve this, the simplest way is to compare the numbers step by step. Because we have 4 numbers, we need to find a way to come up with which of them is the largest. So one common trick is to create a helper function, okay, which will take in 2 parameters and find the max of those 2. And then it will return the greater of those 2 values, okay. Then we can reuse that helper function to compare all the 4 numbers, okay. So the idea is we compare A and B, okay, and then we find the max of A and B. Then we compare C and D, and then we find the max of C and D. Then we compare the results of the first 2 comparisons and get the ultimate maximum. So this is basically what we are trying to do. Let me comment this. Now, to do this, we'll need a helper function. So to create a function, we need another function, which is interesting. So I'm going to introduce the concept of conditionals. Now, conditionals are simply branch statements, okay. They help you to direct your code in a sense that, say you want to do something only if a certain condition is met, right? Then you use this conditional statement, and you've heard of them. They are the if-else statements, right? So we're going to be using if-else statements to create our helper function. So our helper function is going to be called max. It's going to return an integer, okay, and it's going to take in 2 parameters. So following our template here, return type is int, followed by function name max, followed by the two parameters we'll take in, a and b, and then we could open the curly braces. Now what we want to do is to return the largest value. So we'll just compare. We'll say if a is greater than b, then it means a is the largest value, so return a. Otherwise, return b. So we can write it this way. Now in C, you have to always put your conditionals in brackets, okay? This is it. So this max function is saying if a is greater than b, return a, else return b. And when we are creating functions, okay, within the function declaration, we are supposed to specify that it's int. So in this case, we are supposed to specify here that it's int, and specify here that it's also an int variable we are taking in. Now that we've created our helper function, we are going to use that to create the max of 4 function. So we are going to go by the same approach. Return type, function name, max of 4. Parameters, 4 parameters. Now one thing you might notice is that we are using int a here, and then we are using int a here. When it comes to functions, you don't have to worry about this. It doesn't create a conflict because this is a different function. So it will run in its own scope. So it will create its own variable called a. Same as this, it will create its own variable called a. And same as the main. The main is also a function. So it will also create its own variable called a. So we shouldn't worry about using the same name here, and the same name here, and the same name here, because it won't create a conflict as long as they are running in different scopes or different functions. So now we're going to say int max1 is equal to max, call our function, and then we pass in a and b. Then we say int max2, and then we pass in c and d, and then we call int ultimate max, and we pass max of max1 and max2, and then we return the ultimate max. Done. This is simple. I'm sure you understand. We create a max value, which is a helper function, a max function, and helper function, and that helps us to go through this analogy and get the maximum value. So let's test it out. And it works. Now let's submit. Passes all test cases. Okay, let's wait for test case 3. And there we have it. That's it. You've just learned how to write and use functions in C, and how to make your code more organized and reusable. Functions are going to come up again and again in programming, so mastering them now will make your life much easier. See you in the next video. Bye.